Today, my topic is Henry David Thoreau's Walden. We already discussed first chapter of this essay Walden, that is economy. Today, second chapter, that is where I lived and what I lived for. The second chapter presents the place where he stayed and it tells us why he stayed there, and we may consider every place to be a suitable spot for a house, but we must live free and uncommitted. We should not develop the idea of owning a house, for the house then starts owning us. When the desire for the possession of land is strong, it is wiser not to have actual possession. It makes no little difference whether you are committed to a farm or the country jail. About his purpose is going to the Walden Pond, Thoreau says, I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, and I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear, nor did I wish to practice resignation unless it was quite necessary. Thoreau recalls the several places where he nearly settled before selecting Walden Pond. The title of this chapter combines the practical topic of residence, that is where I lived, with the deepest philosophical topic of the meaning of life, what I lived for. Where should his house be located? Thoreau considers. He has talked to all the nearby farmers and imagined buying their house and living there. He believes a place in the country to be best, far from the village. In his imagination, he lays out the plans to many houses and then decides against building them. Because he says true richness is leaving things alone. He quotes the Roman philosopher Cato's warning that it is best to consider buying a farm very carefully before signing the papers. He had been interested in the Hollowell farm despite the many improvements that needed to be made there. But before a deed could be drawn, the owner's wife unexpectedly decided she wanted to keep the farm. So he gave up his claim on the property. Instead of that, he created a new existence for himself at Walden, where he found joy and fulfillment in nature, truly awakening in his mornings there, while most of society remains perpetually asleep, living mean lives when the possibilities of a much better life is possible in this world. The key to achieving such a great life, he says, that we should accept that simplicity. So he forced to simplify his life. He concludes that it is the best as long as possible to live free and uncommitted. Later, he followed his own advice and avoided purchasing a farm because it would inevitably tie him down financially and complicate his life. On Independence Day, 1845, he begins living in the woods full-time during night as well as day. The house not yet finished, but it gives glorious because it is a part of nature with the wind blowing through it and the company of birds. He enjoys the songs of the birds. So, his project at Walden is more than merely the pride of a first-time homeowner. When he first moves into his dwelling on Independence Day, it gives him a proud sense of being a god on Olympus. That is Mount Olympus, it is the home of the god. Even though the house still lacks a chimney and plastering. Taking an optimistic view, he declares that his poorly insulated walls gives his interior the benefit of fresh air on summer nights. He proudly announces that he resides far from the post office and all the constraining social relationship. And this deed provides him with true ownership. A poet says that I am monarch of all I survey. His first impression of the pond, which is something misty in the early morning, sometimes clear when there is a gentle rain. It is like a lower heaven, with the vista and mountains spreading out behind it. There he found himself free from the trivialities of village life and free from the economic rat race and free to be inspired by nature. Though men are in the habit of imagining faraway lands, but Toru finds that his new living place so close by has all the glories of nature and made him feel just as far away from his previous life as if he had travelled far. Morning is Toru's invitation to make his life simple and commune with nature. Every morning he bathes in the pond, calling it a religious exercise. He calls morning the time that all important events, including poetry and art, occur. It is that time that intelligence wake, as say the Vedas. Toru urges each man to awaken fully and elevate his life by conscious endeavor. It is a man's duty to make every moment of his life meaningful. He went to the woods to live deliberately. He has faith in simplicity as the path to spiritual wakefulness. Simplicity is the basic principle. An honest man need not count more than his 10 fingers. Our affairs must be 2 or 3 and not 100 or thousands. Instead of 3 meals a day, have but 1. He laughs about the absurdity of a man who wakes from a nap and asks for the news when he is not really awake to life. He rails against the post office, saying he has never read something truly important in a letter or even in a newspaper, which contains only gossip. In order to experience spiritual truth, one must spend one's day as deliberately as nature. He wonders why men persist in living merely like ants, when life can be a joyful celebration. We live with such hurry and waste life. The railroads, which not built, are unnecessary and positively harmful. We do not ride on the railroad, it rides upon us. The post office and the newspapers are useless appendages of the modern civilization. Instead of trying to know the news, we should know that which is never old. The newspaper has only reports of murders, thieves, deaths by accidents, boats capsizing, or animals run over by trains. To a philosopher, all news is gossip, and those who edit or read it are like old women. The events that take place in England, in Spain, in France are not worth the trouble and curiosity bestowed upon them. So we should quit wasting our time reading the worthless, repetitive gossip that fills the daily newspaper and seek out the real truth of existence. The letters that we write are a waste. There is nothing worth conveying in our routine and trivial lives. The penny post is hardly worth a penny. Men should make an honest effort to come to grips with realities. They should not allow themselves to be deluded. Life would be like a fairy tale then. But we are engrossed in appearances, and we have no time to look deep into reality. Our meeting houses and court houses and the jail become silly and meaningless when they are exposed to the piercing gaze of a lover of truth. Let us settle ourselves and work. Let us get rid of the mud and slush of opinion and prejudices and delusion and come to the bottom rock of reality. Be it life or death, only reality can satisfy us. According to the Hindu scriptures, our soul, like the lost son of a king in Brahma, is Brahma itself, but it dwells in abject circumstances imposed by its birth and surroundings, not knowing the truth about itself. As the king's son is brought up by a forester, we lead this mean life because our vision does not go beyond the surface of things. We think that is which appears to be in eternity, there is something true and sublime. Let us spread one day as deliberately as nature and not be thrown off the track by every nutshell and mosquito's wing that falls on the rails. Time is but the stream I go fishing in. I drink at it, but while I drink, I see the sandy bottom and deduct how shallow it is. Its thin current passes away, but eternity remains. So overall in this essay, there is a moral philosophy coloring the entire work. This centers around the doctrines of renunciation, detached activities, duty for duty's sake, and pursuit of self-reliance. Here my next topic is Henry Wordsworth Longfellow's poem, The Lost Youth. About Henry Wordsworth Longfellow, he was the best American poets of the 19th century. He was born on 1807 in Portland, Massachusetts, United States. He grew up in the thriving coastal city, and he remembered this in his famous poem, My Lost Youth. It was published in the year 1856. He mentioned its port and woodlands, the ships and sailors from distant land who sparked his boyish imagination, and the historical association of its old fort, and in 1913 offshore, it is naval battle between American ship, the name of the ship is Enterprise, and the British ship Boxer, and he is known for his works such as The Song of Hiawatha and Paul Revere's Ride. and his first major poetry collections were Voice of the Night and Ballads and Other Poems, and another famous work of Longfellow, Evangeline. And he was the first American to translate Dane's Divine Comedy. He perfectly described the American history in his writings. During his adolescence, he was eyewitness the American Revolution. He describes the integration of the child into a boy and a man with the passage of time and place. This poem is about wanting what has already passed, and no matter how hard we try, we cannot regain what we lost. He describes about Portland, Maine during his youth and speaks about many different sounds and sights. So it simply means we spend a lot of time thinking about our past, which we can't have it. My Lost Youth is a lyrical autobiography of the poet's early life. It is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's tribute to both to his native city, that is Portland, Maine, and to the boy who climbed its hilly streets and gazed out over its harbor, dreaming faraway dreams. The speaker often thinks of a town by the sea, the town of his youth, and recall the memories connected with it. These memories seem to murmur to him the song of his youth. This builds a refrain repeated at the conclusion of each stanza. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. Here the poem lines. Often I think of the beautiful town that is seated by the sea, often in thought go up and down the pleasant streets of the dear old town, and my youth comes back to me, and a verse of a Lapland's song is haunting my memory still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thought. So he is mentioning about a beautiful town, and he often thinks of a town by the sea, the town of his youth, and recalls the memories connected with it. These memories seems to murmur to him the song of his youth. He mentioned the town as a dear old town, and the streets are very pleasant streets. Still, the thoughts are going up and down in his memories. I can see the shadowy lines of its trees and catch in sudden gleams the sheen of the far surrounding seas and islands that were the spirits of all my boyish dreams, and the burden of that old song it murmurs and whispers still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. He mentioned about the trees and its sudden gleams and the island, surrounding seas, everything in his memories. Still, he is haunted by the memories of all these old things. I remember the black wars and the slips and the sea tides tossing free, and Spanish sailors and with bearded lips, and the beauty and the mystery of the ships, and the magic of the sea, and the voice of that wayward song is singing and saying still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thought of youth are long, long thoughts. So here he remembered about that ship, port, and its beauty, that misery, everything of the ship, and the magic of the sea, and the voice of the song, everything he is mentioned in this stanza. So he remembered all these things. Still it is in his memory. Here the next stanza. I remember the bulwarks by the shore and the fort upon the hill, the sunrise gun with its hollow roar, the drumbeat repeated over and over, and the bugle wild and shrill, and the music of that old song throbs in my memory still. So he recalls the islands in the sea and the black wharfs, that is port, and the sea tides, sailor and their ships. And also remembers the fort upon a hill, and he recalls the image of a sea battle and the sea captains killed in the fight and lying in their graves. So here again poem lines. I remember the sea fight far away, how it thundered over the tide, and the dead captains as they lay in their graves overlooking the tranquil bay where they in battle died, and the sound of that mournful song goes through me with a thrill. So here he recalls the fight between the American ship and the British ship. The name of the American ship is Enterprises and the name of the British ship is Boxer. That battle occurred in 1813. I can see the breezy doom of groves, the shadows of Deering's woods, and the friendships old and the early loves come back with a Sabbath sound as of doors in quiet neighborhoods, and the verse of that sweet old song, it flutters and murmurs still. He remembers the sentiments of a schoolboy, which are partially a prophecy and partially a wild longing. The speaker observes that there are things which cannot be spoken, dreams which cannot die, and thoughts that turn a strong heart in a weak one. So here painful memories are also explained in this stanza. The dreams are still alive, which he saw in his adolescence. Here the poem lines. I remember the gleams and glooms that dart across the schoolboy's brain, the song and the silence in the heart, that in part are prophecies and in part are longing wild and vain, and the voice of that fitful song sings on and is never still. There are things of which I may not speak, there are dreams that cannot die. There are thoughts that make the strong heart weak and bring a pallor into a cheek, and a mist before the eye, and the words of that fatal song come over me like a chill. So he recalled all his memories in this poem. He lost all these happiness, but still everything existing in his memories and in his dreams. Here the last stanza. Strange to move now are the forms I meet when I visit the dear old town, but the native air is pure and sweet, and the trees that overshadow each well-known street as they balance up and down, or singing the beautiful song, or shying and whispering still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. When the speaker returns to the old town, he finds forms which are strange to him, but the native air is pure and sweet. His heart returns to the woods and finds his lost youth again, together with a strange but beautiful song, the refrain. So, this poem expresses melancholy for what is lost, but also enjoys the memories that still remain. So through this poem, we too think about our lost memories, which we cannot have it. Thank you so much.